Every time a Star Citizen event comes around, the community starts to wake up again. Players come back, creators start making predictions, people start talking about what might be revealed, and for a moment, the whole project feels bigger than just the alpha we log into. CitizenCon, Invictus, IAE, even Drake Defense Con. These events are supposed to be celebrations of the game, the community, the ships, and the future of the Voss. But every time they happen, the pledge store comes with them. New ships, returning ships, warbond deals, limited time offers, upgrade chains, and that familiar feeling of wondering if you should grab something now before it disappears again. So the question is, are Star Citizen's biggest events still community celebrations, or have they become sales events with a celebration built around them? What's up, everybody? I'm Callsign Timble, and welcome back to A Citizen's View, a series where I look at Star Citizen from the point of view of the average player, not as a developer, not as a whale, not as somebody trying to farm outrage, just as someone in the community who loves the project and wants to talk honestly about where it's doing well, where it's missing the mark, and where it may need to change. In episode 1, we talked about limited stock concept ship sales and how those sales can create pressure, frustration, and FOMO within the community. Today, we're expanding that conversation to look at the larger event cycle around Star Citizen and asking whether events like CitizenCon, Invictus, and IAE are still about bringing the community together, or if they're becoming another way to push players back towards the pledge store. To be fair, these events are a huge part of Star Citizen's identity. CitizenCon is the big one. That's the event where CIG usually shows the future of the game. It's where players expect big reveals, new technology, major gameplay demonstrations, Squadron 42 updates, system previews, base building, ships, professions, and those massive "this is why we back the game" moments. CitizenCon is not just another live stream. For a lot of backers, it feels like the yearly check-in on the dream. Then you have Invictus. Invictus is the military showcase. It's the event that celebrates the UEE Navy, military manufacturers, combat ships, fleet power, and that whole patriotic sci-fi naval fantasy that Star Citizen does really well. This is where players get excited about fighters, gunships, dropships, carriers, corvettes, and capital ships. It's where the game leans hard into that military fantasy. And then there's IAE, the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo. IAE is basically the big annual ship show. It's the event where almost everything comes back around. Players can rent ships, test things out, compare manufacturers, and look at the full scope of what Star Citizen has become. And I want to be clear, these events are not bad ideas. Actually, I think they're some of the coolest things CIG does. They make the universe feel alive. They give players a reason to log in. They give new players a chance to experience the game. And they create moments where the community feels connected. But the issue is not that these events exist. The issue is what they have become. Let's start with the good side, because there's a lot of good here. When these events hit right, they are genuinely special. CitizenCon can remind people why Star Citizen is different from every other space game. Even when you are frustrated with the bugs, the delays, or the backlog, CitizenCon has a way of pulling you back in and saying, look at what this could become. And for a project like Star Citizen, that matters. This game is built on long-term belief. It is built on people looking at what exists now and imagining what it could become 5, 10, or even 15 years from now. CitizenCon feeds that imagination. Invictus does something similar, but in a different way. Invictus makes the universe feel bigger. It gives the military side of the game a sense of ceremony. You walk through the expo halls, you see the ships on display, you watch the fleet fly by, and for a moment, Star Citizen feels less like a broken alpha and more like a living universe. And IAE may be the best event for new and returning players. It gives people a chance to try ships they would never normally touch. A player who only owns a starter ship can finally sit in a Carrack, a Reclaimer, a Hammerhead, a C2, heck, even a Perseus, or whatever dream ship they've been staring at for years. That experience is powerful, because sometimes flying a ship is what makes the dream click. You stop watching videos about Star Citizen and you actually feel it. So I don't want this episode to sound like I'm saying these events are bad. They're not. The community needs these moments. The game needs these moments. But there's a reason this
The problem is that
conversation
every
keeps coming
major
up.
event also comes with a sales machine attached to it, and that changes the way these events feel. CitizenCon gets people hyped for the future, then the store updates. Invictus celebrates military service and the fleet power, then the combat ships go on sale. IAE lets you test almost every ship in the game, then every manufacturer gets its day in the spotlight, and the pledge store becomes the real expo hall. And that's where things get complicated. Because yes, Star Citizen needs funding. I understand that. Most backers understand that. The game exists because people have funded it through pledges for years. But when every major celebration is also tied to sales, it becomes harder to tell where the community event ends and the marketing event begins. And I think a lot of players feel that. You log in for the event, you enjoy the expo, you walk around, you rent ships, you watch the reveals, you get excited. Then suddenly, you're looking at the pledge store, checking upgrade paths, comparing warbond prices, wondering if this is the best time to buy, and asking yourself, should I grab this now before it disappears again? That's not always healthy excitement. Sometimes that's pressure. And after episode 1, where we talked about limited stock concept ship sales, this is the natural next question. Are these events making the game feel bigger, or are they making the store feel bigger? This matters even more when we talk about new players, because for a new player, events like Invictus and IAE are often the first real introduction to Star Citizen. They hear the game is free to try. They download it. They spawn into a city. They try to figure out the controls. They head to the expo hall and they see these massive ships everywhere. At first, it's amazing. But then they start asking questions. How do I get that ship? How much does that cost? Can I own it in game? Why is this one hundreds of dollars? Wait, some ships cost more than a console. Do I need this to enjoy the game? And to be fair, the answer is no. You do not need an expensive ship to enjoy Star Citizen. You can start small. You can own ships in game. You can crew other people's ships. You can work your way up. But that's not always the impression the game gives. When the biggest events are centered around ships, sales, and massive displays of expensive vehicles, new players can easily walk away thinking, this game is for people with money. And that is a dangerous perception. Because even if it's not fully true, perception matters. If a new player's first experience with Star Citizen is half wonder, half sticker shock, that affects how they see the entire project. Now, from the backer side, it gets even more complicated. A lot of us love these events. We look forward to them. We plan around them. We talk with friends about what might be revealed. We guess which ships might go on sale. We wonder what surprise CIG might drop this year. And honestly, that can be fun. There's nothing wrong with being excited. There's nothing wrong with buying a ship if you want it, can afford it, and understand what you're buying. The problem is when excitement starts turning into habit. Every year there's another event. Every event has another ship. Every ship has another upgrade path. Every upgrade path has another good deal. And every good deal feels like something you might regret missing. That's where the event culture starts to blend with FOMO. You're not just celebrating Star Citizen anymore, you're managing your hangar. And I think that's the part CIG needs to be careful with. Because the more these events feel like sales events, the more players will judge them like sales events. Instead of asking, was CitizenCon exciting? People ask, what did they sell? Instead of asking, was Invictus fun? People ask, what ships came back? Instead of asking, was IAE a cool in-game expo? People ask, what was the best warbond chain? And when that happens, the event loses some of its magic. Now, to be fair, there is another side to this. CIG is not hiding the fact that Star Citizen is funded through pledges. These events generate attention. Attentions bring players back. Returning players spend money. New players buy starter packs. Existing backers upgrade ships, and that funding keeps development going. That's the reality. Also, these events do give players value. Free fly events let people try the game before spending money. Ship rentals let players test ships before buying or owning them. Manufacturer showcases give structure to a universe that could otherwise feel overwhelming. And honestly, if CIG removed the sales completely, people would complain about that too. Players want access to ships during these events. Players want limited paints. Players want new reveals. Players want the excitement of what's coming next. So the answer is not as simple as events should have no sales. That's not realistic. The better question is about balance. Can these events still feel like community celebrations first and sales events second? Because right now, depending on the event, it can sometimes feel reversed. So, what could CIG do to improve this? First, I think they could make the in game side of these events stronger. Give players more reasons to participate that have nothing to do with buying ships. More event missions, more community challenges, more temporary activities, more in game rewards, more reasons to show up with friends, more things that make the event feel like it exists inside the universe, not just on the pledge store. Second, they could communicate more clearly with new players. Make it obvious that you do not need to buy these ships to enjoy the game. Make it clear which ships are ownable in game. Explain rentals better. Explain starter ships better. Explain that crewing someone else's ship is a valid way to experience bigger gameplay. Third, they could be careful with limited time pressure. There's a difference between this ship is available during the event and you better get this now or you'll regret it. Even when the wording is not directly aggressive, the structure can still create pressure. And finally, I think CIG should continue building events that celebrate players, not just products. Show org stories, show community creations, highlight the everyday citizens. Because Star Citizen is not just ships, it's the people who create stories with them. So, are Star Citizen events celebrations or storefronts? Honestly, they're both. And that's the problem. At their best, CitizenCon, Invictus, and IAE are some of the most exciting moments in the Star Citizen community. They bring people together. They create hype. They let people dream. They give us a glimpse of what the verse could become. But at their worst, they can feel like massive marketing campaigns, where the community celebration is wrapped around the pledge store. And I don't think the solution is to remove sales completely. That's not going to happen. And I don't even think most players expect that. But I do think CIG needs to protect the magic of these events. Because if every major moment in Star Citizen becomes tied to buying something, then eventually players stop seeing the event as a celebration. They start seeing it as another sales window. And that would be a shame. Because Star Citizen's community deserves more than a storefront. It deserves a universe worth showing up for. At the end of the day, I don't think anyone is saying Star Citizen should stop having major events. CitizenCon, Invictus, and IAE are part of what makes this community feel alive. They give us something to look forward to. They bring old players back. They give new players a reason to finally try the game. And when they hit right, they remind us why so many people still believe in this project. But I do think CIG has to be careful. Because when every major event is also connected to ship sales, limited time offers, warbond deals, and store updates, the meaning of those events can start to shift. Instead of feeling like a celebration of the verse, they can start to feel like another sales window. And that is where the balance matters. The ships are part of Star Citizen. The pledge store is part of Star Citizen. The funding model is part of Star Citizen. But the community is also a part of it. The stories players create, the orgs people build, the crews that form, the screenshots, the rescues, the battles, the failures, and the laughs. And those moments can only happen because this game gives players the tools to make them happen. That should be at the center of these events too. So I want to ask you, when you think of CitizenCon, Invictus, or IAE, what comes to mind first? The excitement, the reveals, the community, the free fly, or the store? And do you think CIG has the balance right? Or do these events need to feel less like sales periods and more like true celebrations of the verse? Let me know what you think in the comments. If you made it this far, and if you've never tried Star Citizen before,
Major events like Invictus, IAE, and free fly periods can be a great time to jump in and see what the game is all about. You can test different ships, explore the vaults, and decide for yourself whether Star Citizen is something you want to be a part of. If you do decide to jump in, using my referral code when you create your RSI account gets you 50,000 UEC to help kickstart your time in the vaults. And when CIG runs referral promotions, there can sometimes be extra rewards on top of that. So if you want to support the channel and get a little bonus for yourself, check the link in the description, use my code, and I'll see you in the vaults. This has been a Citizen's View. Fly safe.